I'm going to give you guys a bit of a tour of my upper swale area here. This is a very small swale. Actually, I'm hoping to join it to my other swale. Again, what a swale is essentially is you dig out this area on contour, so on the same level, and you take that soil, you scoop it out, and you put it on the downhill side, and then you plant into it. What that does is all the rainwater catchment from this whole entire area funnels down, hits the trench on contour, which is the swale, spreads out and sinks, spreads out along the swale, and you take the velocity and the energy out of the water, and then it sits and it sinks and stores underground, where then the plants wick it up from the bottom as they need it. So with these systems, depending on the catchment area, you need to know how to design the swale so that you don't overload your swale and then wash out the berm. Right now with this swale here, it's a fairly small catchment area. It was kind of a trial swale. It was the first one that I did. And so far it's worked out really well. Every single tree on this swale, in the berm of the swale and bush, I haven't had to water all year long. This is about a year and a half in, and I haven't had to water any of these things. So what we have is a Bart nut, hickory nut, the Hass cap here. This is shagbark hickory. We have some raspberries in between. We have comfrey planted everywhere that's down. I use those as chop and drop. The whole front of the swale is planted out to garlic and onions. We have more pears here, an autumn olive, pears, another pear, clover growing all throughout it. That's just starting to get established, and I'm continuing to work with this. We have some service berries, apples, some elderberries, strawberries, garlic, dill. We have sea buckthorn, goji berries, more Hass caps. This is a peach. We have Siberian pea shrubs. This is my buddy Max. He's a good little garden helper. He just absolutely loves living in this space. He comes in and digs up my cucumbers. I'm walking past a bunch of currants and peaches and pears, sea buckthorn, more elderberry. On the back side, we have another composting system with a rainwater catchment pond here. We have an apple, a rainwater catchment pond that overflows to another swale on contour. Now you notice these swales, and on these swales here I have a whole bunch more various fruit trees and everything. So you notice these swales are actually full of leaves right now. I'm kind of trialing something out, a soil building system where in the wintertime, what I was finding, I'm really cold up here, and what I was actually finding is that the cold air sinks and sits in the swale, I think, sits right up against the root zone of the trees. And I'll show you a persimmon here. This persimmon, I'm kind of using these leaf bags as a bit of thermal insulation. I've put leaves around. I'm going to kind of expand this. This persimmon here died back right to the bottom. And I have a post in my post history on Reddit if you want to creep it. And I had a bud coming out here this year, and it was absolutely tiny. It was just 2 little leaves, and the tree was a little less than what it is now, but it was all dead. It didn't survive the wintertime. So what I did was I slowly pruned back the tree until I got to the live wood. I never got to any live wood, so I just cut it right, left about 2 inches above the new leaves, the bud set, so that the new tree would have enough room to kind of make a strong base and grow from there to attach to the stem. And look at this thing. This thing grew. You wouldn't even know it happened. You wouldn't even know that this thing was cut back to the ground. And I really believe that it's because it's grown in really good soil. So what I did here is the swale used to come in and continue, so I filled this part in just to get that the heat or the cold area in the wintertime away, because the persimmon, I'm pushing zone a little bit on the persimmon here. I think it'd be better to have this thing planted down near the pawpaws in my lower area. It's a bit more of a microclimate. But we'll try it this year. We filled it in. I can run some compost on top of that. Right now I have some horse manure in there. That should maybe keep a little bit of heat up. You know, with cold Canadian winters, you're fighting against the weather here, and it's probably going to slow down. But I'm hoping when I get the leaves out a little thicker around the base, you know, not right up against the trunk, because you don't want to have any boring insect problems, but I'm going to spread some leaves in and around there and thermally insulate that a little bit better, and we'll see how it goes. I have a trellis there for some cold hardy kiwi. I can't wait for that stuff to come in. Some maples that in the future I'm going to tap, get some syrup out of. Linden trees, we got blackberries. We got tons and tons of perennial kale. I mentioned this in another video. You know, these are ways that I can get the rabbits coming in here feeding. They just sit here and they just love this stuff. They poo in it and everything. I don't really eat it. I have so much of this all over the place. And then I have a fertility zone just uphill of linden, service berries, blueberries, raspberries, blackberry patch with assorted different flowers and other companion plants like comfrey. I have comfrey absolutely everywhere here. And hopefully this will, every rain event, it'll wash nutrient into all these fruit trees, just from the wildlife doing all the work for me. So the main reason of this video, a little bit to describe the swale here and the systems that I have, some of the trees I planted, but another one is a good idea that you can do with swale. So this is a large compost pile. I pick up a couple thousand leaf bags every year from my neighbors who want to give away their fertility. I mow it up, and then this is just excess ones that I had extra that I mix into the compost, and I turn it and I run this right on the swale. So just uphill of the trench portion of the swale, I'll run this compost. And as this settles and finishes, I have to get air back in that pile to keep it aerobic, because we want carbon dioxide and not methane being produced. If there's no oxygen, then the soil chemistry changes, and the microbiology that breaks the stuff down, it doesn't have oxygen to make CO2, so it makes CH4, which is methane. Methane is 30 times worse of a greenhouse gas. So we want to keep this aerobic. So I turn this across the hill, and slowly, once it gets to the end of that hill, then I'll incorporate it into the gardens. As it turns across the hill, any single time that it rains, all that rainwater is hitting my compost. The catchment area, this whole area, it doesn't really look like it too much, but it's a big contour like this. The contour comes down, so all the rainwater comes, any that washes across, hits this compost pile, makes compost tea, which it then deposits into these swales, which will, in the spring, I'm going to dig out the leaves and put it back on top as compost, as mulch. So the swales will be a little emptier. They'll have more room to hold water. And basically every single time I have a rain event, I get fertility events. So I get, instead of irrigation, I get fertigation. So it's a way to work smarter, not harder, and get nature to do all the work for you. These fruit trees, I'll make lots of videos in the future. These fruit trees, it'll be really fun to watch and compare this system to the other swale system, although I am running compost on that. And in the back area, in my backyard, I have another swale, two of them actually, and those ones have a bunch of cherry trees and a lot more thorny stuff, because this is another deer pressure point for me. But it's going to be really interesting to watch these trees come alive and grow in the next little while, when they're built into these really, really strong, sustainable, automatic fertilizing and water systems. So I'll hopefully take you on the journey with me. This is just the backyard here. I might as well extend the video a little bit longer, another 45 seconds or so. You guys can watch the dogs go crazy and fight. That's Jenny and Max. They're two great little garden helpers. Hey Jenny, how's it going? Oh, that's a good girl. Yeah, she's a good girl. So here we got the kids playing soccer. We're gonna have grapes growing up all this here. We'll all 10 different vines of grapes in here, apricots. This is the upper swale in the backyard. This I'm just starting out. This is right now, I sheet mulched this, cardboard down, compost. Actually, I did compost first, then cardboard, then more compost, manure on top of that, shredded leaves on top of that. I'm going to leave it to that for now. In the spring, I'm going to cover it with about probably 6 to 8 inches of wood chips, and then this thing will be just rocking by then. This is more hazelnuts. We've got sea buckthorn, cherries, sea buckthorn, lots of raspberries, lots of thorny, brambly raspberries in here that I've put in to try to keep the deer out of here. This is another deer pressure point. You can see the lots and lots of sea buckthorn in there. More hazelnuts. This is a water runoff point for my artesian well, so I can swap it over to here and I can basically automatically water this if I need to, but I typically don't need to. This is the apricot tree. We've got grapes in here. Lots of clovers planted in here, Jerusalem artichokes, Egyptian walking onions, different flowers. Typically, I don't really like to weed very much. I just like to let it grow up, and if the weeds start getting in trouble in the way, then I pull them out. There's an autumn olive, lots of wood on the ground. This is more leaf bags. I'm going to throw these back in an overflow pile. This is my son's garden, so he's going to do a bunch of pumpkins in here. He's already got garlic planted everywhere. He saw that we were actually making money selling stuff at the end of the driveway, and he wanted a piece of the action. Makes me so proud to watch your kids, you know, really get into this lifestyle of living sustainably. So he's got his own compost system. He's got 2 pear trees, a raspberry patch, and I'll take you with me as we get my son into this stuff. He's 12 years old, and it's going to be a really exciting summer coming up. We'll talk to you guys later.